folks, welcome back to Sandile Africa. This is Chris once again. Well, hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. Wow, what an epic cock-up with technology this morning. I'm telling you. Boy, my apologies to the viewing audience and to my guest, whom I didn't get a link to until literally 2 minutes before the broadcast. Feeling a bit like I've failed here, but my apologies. Just very quickly before we get to the guest, I got to tell you, I had to restart the stream 3 times. I don't know what's going on with PooTube today. But on a side note, for those of you who've been with me in the 3 years now that I've been broadcasting since I retired from active service, my old channel's back. I appealed it last night, and after 23 months, YouTube saw fit to restore my channel. We'll talk more about that later today, folks. But anyway, what I want to do now is welcome in my guest today. It's now you're gonna have to correct me if I get it wrong. I can get Sandile correct. That's not going to be a problem. Sandile Mnikathi. Did I get it correct? The deputy mayor of I always get this wrong. uMnngeni, but Howick area. What did I get wrong? Tell me what I got wrong, Sandile.
No, you got absolutely nothing wrong. So it was Sandile Mnikathi.
Okay.
uMnngeni.
Okay.
Correctly, so.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Well, something went right as we got started here. Okay. Well, listen, I asked during the campaign for the municipal elections, and I don't know if you know this, so I'll just give you some background because we haven't chatted before. I asked people to go vote in South Africa for over a year before the elections because we didn't know the date it was going to be. We just knew the window. And I said, you got to get out. This is the chance to make a difference. If you want to get the ANC out and get service delivery in your towns, municipal elections is where it matters because that's where you see the tangible impact of what a party can and can't do. Because your rubbish, your rates, your water, the streets, all of that is handled by cities and municipalities in South Africa. Foreign policy and national things, that's all done in the parliament. And while that affects every South African, you don't see it on a day-to-day basis. But when the trash isn't removed, when there's rats in the street, when there's potholes everywhere, you see that. So I said, if you want to change it, go vote. And guess what? South Africans didn't listen to me. 31% turnout, and they didn't listen to me. So anyway, I interviewed 9 different political parties from across the spectrum, and 40 candidates for office. I tried to interview Chris Pappas because I'd heard about him. He sounded interesting. I didn't know who he was, but he was busy on the campaign trail and never got back to me, which was fine. He probably never even got the message. After the election, when I knew I was coming to Howick to speak at the Drockendale Choir School, I figured, hey, maybe I could try to interview him. And he kindly set up an interview. And I think it was actually his birthday the day I was there because you guys gave him a cake or something like that. So I interviewed him. At the time, he said, well, you should interview my deputy. And I said, yeah, absolutely, but I want to interview you first. And then I just came back to South Africa for the second trip, and he asked me to interview you again, and we weren't able to do it there. So we're doing it distance with the tech problems. Tech problems over. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And let's get into it, okay?
Sure. No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. Okay, so first off, unlike myself, you're not a wanderer. You're not a nomad. You're actually from that place, right? You're born and raised there.
Yeah, I know. I often tell people that I don't lead a very interesting life. I was raised and born in Howick. I went to school in Howick, so what we call preparatory school, which is primary school, was in Howick, and then I went to Howick High School. And then my university was just down the road in a city called Pietermaritzburg. So, yeah, I'm a local.
No, I know Pietermaritzburg. Is it possible to move the camera back a little bit? Somehow it's like you got larger, and then just tilt it down. There you go. Tilt it down a little bit. So perfect. That's perfect. Okay. I don't want people to think you're a big guy. You're not a big guy. You're just making you look like you're huge on the camera there. All right. So you're from the area right there. Now you went to Pietermaritzburg and you studied what? Social science. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I did my bachelor social science, and then in South Africa it's quite strange. So you do your 3-year degree and then you do an honors degree. So that would be your 4th year. I did that in international relations, and I had to do that so that I could move on to my master's degree, which was in political science again. And currently I'm still there, trying to get a PhD done, but it's become a bit difficult over the past year or so.
Well, I would imagine. I mean, you got a day job. It kind of keeps you busy, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's so you do reading here and you go home, you do some more reading. So yeah, I have to juggle it, but it is quite difficult.
Well, I can empathize. I did a distance online master's program in the early days when a lot of universities were doing that. I did an in-residence master's program prior to that. And then I did another hybrid, where with the Army War College, I was distanced for much of it, but then we had resident phases. We had to come back for resident phases. So I've done that. I empathize. It's tough to do a day job and also learn and focus on those things. But, I found that while it's tough, it really it helps you focus on both your job and on the education task. And hopefully that's the experience you're having and not a miserable one, because it can be miserable.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So I'm sorry, go ahead. Good.
No, sorry. No,
go ahead. Continue with what you're going to say. It was about the education.
No, I was literally just agreeing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the case.
Now, an interesting thing happened there in uMnngeni, Howick, this past election. While the DA nationally, well, maybe not nationally, but certainly, well, nationally they did poorly too, but although your party disagrees with that assessment. But in the Western Cape, well, they lost 37% of their votes from 2016. I think that's bad. But in the Western Cape, they didn't do so well. But they've never had control of municipality ever in KwaZulu-Natal, to my recollection. And not only did the DA, the Democratic Alliance, gain control of the council, but you did it outright. If I'm not mistaken, your party won every ward. Is that correct?
No. So
okay, I got it wrong.
Yeah, no, but it's quite interesting. So this is how close it was. We only won by 42 votes. So the extra seat that gave us a majority was with 42 votes. So it was a very close election, and I think we quite aware of that. And I think so are the ANC, and they definitely want to claw it back in the next election. So we really have to just put in the hard work between now and then to make sure that we win with a bigger margin. I mean, knowing that you only won by 42 votes is not very settling. So yeah, it was a hotly contested election.
Well, 42. The camera's slipping on us again. It's not playing nice. Your chin is. I don't know what's going on there.
Oh no, man.
You're leaving. Okay, there you go. I don't know if your chair. Maybe your chair's sinking. I don't know. Anyway, but 42 votes. Wow, that is a very tight margin. And I guess that I suppose in some ways, if I were you, I would look at it, and maybe you do. I'll get your thoughts on this. I would look at it as a motivation and something to keep me honest and keep me straight and keep me driving and make sure that I'm responsive and transparent to the needs of the citizens of that town. Does that seem fair?
You wanted my job. I mean, you've just captured it perfectly. I think you could come do this now. That's quite correct. And I think that's been the attitude that we've taken. As you know, as I've said, that 42 votes is not a lot of votes. And so we obviously want to win with a bigger margin next time. And the only way to do that is to grow confidence within the voters. And that's to ensure that services are delivered timelessly and effectively.
Well, it's interesting because I've been there a few times now, and I listen to people walking around. I talk to people. I talk to all kinds of people. I talk to wait staff at restaurants. I talk to people in retail outlets, people on the street I meet. And I've talked to a lot of people, and of the white folks who I've talked to who live in Howick, some of them grumble about their streets and about how the DA hasn't done anything. But I come back 6 months later and those streets have been repaired, and I don't hear those people grumbling anymore. I think that, and this is my assessment, that people were a bit impatient the moment that a new party took over the council and expected everything to change overnight, but you can't do that. I mean, you've got challenges, not the least of which is your municipality was in debt when you arrived and had no money. Did I get any part of that incorrect?
No, not at all. You're quite correct. And we had to, we were 10 million rand in debt, and we've paid that all off now. And it was terrible debt. So it was debt taken so that we could pay salaries. And anyone who knows anything about, finances, it's better to go into debt for something that's going to give you back some form of return. So you'd rather invest in infrastructure, take a loan, invest in infrastructure, because at the end of the day you're going to be attracting investors from all over the country to come live here. And so you're quite correct. It was terrible debt that we were in, but we've worked quite hard in ensuring that finances are up to standard. Most municipalities throughout South Africa are unable to pay Eskom. So Eskom is the largest electricity provider. And so municipalities buy electricity from Eskom and then sell it off to customers. And many municipalities just aren't able to pay. And we've paid Eskom timelessly. But I also think people like to pay for services when they can see something happening. So for a very long time, there was what is known as a rate slowdown, where the ratepayer or taxpayer decided that they're not going to pay because they didn't see anything happening within the municipality. And they felt as though their money was going towards paying salaries and nice to haves for politicians. But I think once people see that you're genuine and they see that you are trying, they're also quite happy to pay for the services that they consume.
Well, that makes all the sense in the world. You know, it's interesting because, as I said, it was 6 months between my two visits there, and I could see a tangible difference. And in fact, probably one of the worst roads is the one that's right in front of the city hall. That's and I came in. I didn't come in from the main road. I came in from the backside because I was coming residential. I thought I was going to need dental work by the time I reached a place to park there. This time, I noticed that road actually, when I was leaving town, was actually under repair. Has that work been finished? Because I've been gone for about a month now.
So we had rain delays, and I think that's a lesson that we've had to learn to not undertake such a huge project during summer. But now they're finishing up, and I think the residents are a lot happier than what they were before. But as I said, that's one of the mistakes that we made, was that we were in such a hurry to get roads done that we took on big projects during summer, and that delayed contractors, and people became a bit, frustrated and irritable, which is understandable. But yeah, you live and learn, and that's one of the lessons that we've taken.
Now, another one is when I was going to stay with my host there before I came in town, I said I had to allocate myself an extra 10 minutes. And he said, why? I said, well, because the road in front of the primary school, when you turn off by that shopping plaza there, is really, really bad. And he said, no, it's been repaired. And of course, I've heard people say that about roads in South Africa before. I mean, I've seen the EFF go out and use concrete to fill holes on a dirt road. That was interesting. I've seen people out spray painting ANC over potholes now in parts of South Africa. So I was a little, reticent to believe that was true. But when I drove down there, it was like I was in a different world, because that's a lovely street where that primary school is at. The trees that overlap it, where the parents come and park. But it was just an absolute. It was like going through a World War I trench warfare minefield with all the whole. I mean, I'm not embellishing. You know the road I'm talking about. That road must have been one of the first projects you guys undertook.
For sure, no, definitely. And one of the main reasons why we had to do that road is simply because it's in front of the busiest, one of the busiest schools in the area. So we just had to do that road. And also we were receiving a lot of pothole claims. So obviously, if you had a pothole, you're allowed to claim against the municipality, and the municipality reimburses you for fixing your tire or whatever you may have damaged from your car. And so we just had to, besides the fact that it just looks terrible, it made us look tacky as well. But infrastructure backlogs are probably going to be the biggest challenge that this administration is going to face. There's a lot of roads that need to be fixed, and it's through years and years of neglect. There hasn't been any investment towards fixing roads or buying the machinery to assist you in doing so, and that's a project that you've taken seriously. And so we've gone out and we've bought plant equipment so that we can do the roads in-house, because a lot of municipalities in South Africa still outsource the work, which costs you a lot more than doing it in-house. So that's the direction that we're moving in.
Well, you talk about a backlog. We're talking about a serious backlog, and it's not just in uMnngeni. It's all over the country. Not everywhere, but most places, an incredible backlog of infrastructure projects that have fallen behind. And we're talking about waterworks, we're talking about sewage, drainage. We saw this in Durban with the floods. One of the reasons why so many people were killed, aside the fact that people were living illegally on dangerous places next to, below the water table, I should say, when the floods come. We also had this problem where drainage ditches weren't clean. There was rubbish in them blocking them, and that's why we had these problems. So it's a serious backlog, and you're not going to get it all done in this administration. There's no way. There isn't enough time. It's going to take years, but you are making progress. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's a fair statement, and I think we're also realistic about that as well. And I think we've given us a target to say, you know what, let's make considerable inroads in terms of the infrastructure backlog by the time 2026 comes, so that when we go back to the voter, we can say, listen, we may have not gotten through everything, but this is what we've done within the space of time there where we've been elected. And look, voters they want things to happen today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that we benchmark ourselves against Cape Town. I think that's the flagship DA local government model. And so what people tend to forget is that in Cape Town, the DA didn't do it in his first administration. You see now Jordan Hill-Lewis being able to go out trying to end load shedding and those very fancy things, because he's got the latitude to do so, because they've done the basics right and they've managed to, over a period of time, fix the roads, get the town clean, and now you can start looking at alternative energy sources. So I remember a resident said, why aren't we doing that? And I just said, it's a matter of deciding between, do you want your roads fixed now, which is an immediate problem, or do you want to come off the grid? I mean, we're not saying it's not a priority of ours, but it's definitely something that's, you're in the outer years.
Well, in some respects, you really have to look at it this way. Aside from the patience aspect, you've got to look at, you've got to crawl before you can walk, before you can run. And that's kind of the stage you're at now. Well, hopefully voters will reward your folks if you're doing a good job. And I don't live there, but I've visited twice over a period of 6 months, and I can definitely see tangible changes. One of the things, Sandile, that's neglected here, as a political scientist, you would appreciate this, because economics does loop in with politics and political science at every turn. One of the things that people don't recognize here is that when you allow infrastructure to become dilapidated and become unreliable, you discourage investment. Domestic, local investment, and especially foreign direct investment. I'm not going to put my money in South Africa when I have to hire armed guards to protect my property 24 hours a day, spend 20% of my budget on security. Then I got to spend 10% building my own power plant. Then I've got to, replace tires and axles on my transport trucks every week because the roads are crap. So infrastructure is a lot more important. It's not just inconvenient for residents, but it's detrimental to economic well-being. Would you say that's fair?
No, correct. And it's I think we've done the third tax. So you pay your rate, which is a local government tax, and you pay national tax, and then of course you have to pay your third tax to ensure that your business is secure, because you have to go out and get a private security company, or you end up having to fix the potholes yourself because government has failed. So you end up paying more money on top of the tax that you already pay. But over and beyond that, I think any serious business person will be discouraged to invest in a place that's riddled with potholes, where the street lights don't work, where refuse collection is not collected. I mean, that just discourages anyone from coming into the area. And so when we campaigned, we campaigned on a jobs ticket, but we never said that people will be employed within the municipality. We said we would create the conducive environment for businesses to thrive. And getting the infrastructure right is one of those, is that conducive environment. Aside from the fact that we need to make sure that people, feel safe in their homes, feel safe in their businesses. That's another aspect of it. But that's why infrastructure, waste collection are very high up in this administration's priorities.
Well, and it seems like they should be. I mean, that's what people can see, and that's what you can actually have an impact on right away. So it sounds like a prudent step. Now, let's go back to the conversation. You all saved, sorry, that's an American euphemism, y'all. You all saved a lot of money here, because I think you've cut your interest payments by getting rid of that debt by something like 400,000+ rand per year. Is it per month or per year? Something like that.
I think per annum. Yeah. But I think, yes, so that's so we have, and that's also saving the ratepayer money, because at the end of the day, the ratepayer will pay money towards servicing that loan. Now, whatever money we can get in, we can go back and service the ratepayer. And I think we, people are in a better situation by doing so. As I said earlier, it also gives us the option of looking at other options. So you got the Development Bank of South Africa, and they're quite keen on giving loans out for infrastructure stuff. So one of our main bridges, every morning you drive through there's a massive backlog of traffic because it needs to be widened. Those type of things are the type of things that will deter investors into coming to town. But if we actually take a loan for that, I think the general public will understand the direction that we're going in, as opposed to taking silly loans and we end up servicing them because you want to pay salaries or buy us another manual vehicle or something silly or like that.
Well, absolutely. And another way for people to look at it is this way. The money that was borrowed to pay salaries is eaten. It's gone. There's no tangible, there's nothing there. It's just, you might as well have just pissed it into the local river. Although I wouldn't recommend that. People are probably using that water. But by contrast, if you widen that bridge, or you build a community center and you borrow money and you're making debt payments on it, people are using that community center. It has tangible value. If, for instance, the city decided to build another one in a better location, they could sell that one to the private sector and make money off of it. So it actually has value to it, whereas the money that was borrowed to pay for salaries is simply just gone.
Correct. Yep. I definitely agree.
Yeah, it's hard to describe it any other way. Well, and it's stupid. It just shows, in my view, well, part of the problem, to be fair to the previous administration, and not that I'm intending to be fair to them, but if people have given up paying rates, then revenues decline. That obviously contributed to the debt spending. That's part of the problem. But I mean, it sounds like that's a consequence of under or no performance. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened in the first place.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So you won a ward, Ward 3. You're the deputy mayor, and you're also a counselor for Ward 3. For folks who don't know how that works, you win your ward, or your, as we'd say, precinct here, and then you're on the council, and then from the council they come up with the people on the executive, and you're in the mayor's committee. They call it the MACO. Is that what the nickname for it?
I think so there's two systems. So KwaZulu-Natal is using in KwaZulu-Natal they call it the executive committee.
Okay.
And I think in other parts of the country they call it the MACO, but it's essentially the same thing.
All right, so let me ask you about this election here, because I followed this election very carefully. As I told you, I interviewed 40 candidates from 9 different parties. And by the way, leaders of 5 political parties, including the IFP and a number of others, the Freedom Front Plus and a bunch of others. But let me ask you about your election. How close was your ward? You won by more than 42 votes, I would imagine.
Yeah, I did. But in terms of percentage, I think I ended up on 47%. So I didn't get 50% of the vote in that ward. As you correctly said, it was an ANC ward in the past and has been since the dawn of democracy. But it just, people were tired at that point in time, especially with the COVID-19 funds that were missing. I think that really irritated a lot of people. On top of that, the councillor there, the ward, my predecessor, was just nowhere to be seen during the pandemic. And I think that's really what assisted us a lot. So we were giving out food parcels, we were on the ground, we were helping people sanitizers. And I think walking with citizens during that difficult period is what gave us the edge. Because people don't forget that. To this day, they still talk about how we were there for them in arguably the most difficult times in recent history. So, yeah, I think that's really helped us a lot. And it also assisted us because it put us over the edge. So in terms of council composition, if I were to, resign tomorrow and the DA were to go to a by-election, and if they were to lose that ward to the ANC could then cobble together a coalition with the EFF. So that ward is very, very critical. And so we also need to make sure as the party that, and as the administration, that we service it to make sure that we retain it in the following election, because that is, it's a 50-50 award, but we obviously intend to turn it into a solid award.
Well, one of the challenges that we hear in South Africa, and it's universal, near universal, is that we hear from politicians 90 days before an election. And then we hear from them next time 90 days before the next election. It sounds like in an effort to make a change out there and an effort hopefully to gain a seat in office, you were out there amongst the community. But what's it been like since then? Now I'm going to put you on the spot here, Sandile. Are you out there? Are people seeing you? If I were to go to your ward and show a picture, and they would say, I don't know who that is, put him on a milk carton, or would they know who you are?
I'd like to think so. Admittedly, it's quite difficult. As you said, I'm also the deputy mayor, and normally in South Africa, the mayor, deputy mayor, and speaker are not ward councillors; they're PR councillors, because you then get a lot of time to focus on the work of the office that you hold. But I think that also assists the fact that I'm a deputy mayor, because I've got the ear of the mayor, and so we can divert resources and services to that particular ward. But yeah, I think I'm still very much accessible. And I've often argued that I am a ward councillor before I am a deputy mayor. And so, and I think that people there in the ward can also attest to that, when they phone me, I pick up the phone. And if I need to go out there, I go out there and I meet people. And I believe in public meetings where you give report backs. So people will send you with a whole list of things and say, this is what they'd like in the area. And then I'll go off and I try to work it. And I believe in coming back to the community and saying, listen, this has worked out, this hasn't worked out, this is why it hasn't worked out, and these are my efforts in ensuring that it happens in the near future.
Well, one of the things about politics here is that you oftentimes see a compromise in a political party. It affects, for some strange reason, we got switched around on the screen. I don't know what happened here. Doesn't affect the viewers, nothing for you guys. But for Sandile and I, we just saw ourselves switched on the screen. But now it mirrors what's actually being brought. I don't know what's going on here, but that's a Zoom thing. It's been a fun technical day here, but it just threw me off there for a second. So anyway, we're good. Anyway, so one of the challenges, oftentimes in political parties, in a system like yours, in which the party picks the person that's going to fill the slot if you win the majority or the coalition. You often get the situation with a compromise where the top people aren't always in sync. It's just because one person might have more influence than the other, and as an agreement, you make a compromise. You make the mayor and a deputy mayor, this person, that person. But In the brief time that I've seen you interact with Mayor Chris Pappas, I get the impression that there's a close connection and that you guys work very well together. Is that accurate, or maybe I misread something?
No, not at all.
Damn, I thought I was going to have an exclusive. No, just kidding.
I'm sorry I couldn't deliver that to you, Chris. But yeah, no, we do work well together, and I think one of the things that helps us a lot is that there has to be an element of trust.
Yeah.
So to put things into perspective, and I always tell people, this is how I explain it to people. So I'm in charge of the infrastructure portfolio, which is the largest portfolio out there, and then community services. Community services is parks and gardens, it's your roads, I mean your traffic police and your law enforcement unit, it's burials and all sorts of stuff. So that's really the face of the municipality. And so to be given those two critical portfolios is, again, Mayor Pappas giving me the nod to say, I trust you enough to handle these very critical portfolios. Because if those two portfolios fail, the face of the municipality also fails, because we're not delivering the hardcore services that people want to see on a day-to-day basis. And I think that element of trust helps us. And we have meetings all the time, and I think we always have to have meetings to ensure that we're always on the same page. So our working relationship is a really good one, which is unnatural, if I'm being completely honest with you, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. So you'll find that the mayor starves the deputy mayor of any sense of responsibility because he doesn't want the mayor's profile to grow. And I mean, you even alluded to the fact that he says, no, you have to interview my deputy mayor. It's not often that you'll find a mayor saying, listen, interview him as well, because you might see the next person as a threat. And as long as that's not there and we're honest with each other, I think that our relationship will continue to grow over the next 4 or so years.
Well, Sandile, one thing I share with you from my experience, of course, I spent many, many, many years as a leader, leading troops in battle and also in peacetime and leading huge organizations, multi-billion-dollar organizations, is that that's something true leaders do. You mentor and you promote those who work for you, especially those with talent. That's what you should be doing. And I presume you've picked up on this, and maybe it's part of your character, but I think it's a great lesson for going forward, is that someone that works for you, you should do your best to ensure that they can replace you. So if you're gone, they can step into your shoes and no one misses a beat. I mean, that's true leadership. And I'll nod my cap to Mayor Pappas that he does that. Like I said, and that's why I made a point early on. When I asked to interview him, he wanted me to interview you. Not to get out of an interview, because he'd already agreed to the interview with me, but he wanted to make sure that I got a chance to interview you. Now, I could see why he wanted me to interview you, because if nothing else, your personality aside, the person who you are aside, the portfolios you manage are critically important, and they are the face of the town, as you just mentioned. So I could see why that's the case. So in your role as a deputy mayor, what has been your biggest challenge? Don't tell me roads, but what's been the biggest challenge thus far? I mean, what's been the biggest thing there's got to be something that costs you sleep or frustrates you. What is that biggest thing?
I think local government is like swimming through peanut butter. There's regulations that you have to do it this way. You know the end goal, but so for example, we've put a lot of things down on paper. And we've gone out to the residents and we said, this is what we want to do. And it's not just roads. It's a whole range of things. When it comes to execution, you literally have to, ensure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, because the Auditor General will jump on your back and say, but you didn't do this correctly. Or, you might have the Department of COGTA, which is the Department of Local Government, coming down on your neck and saying, but you guys didn't do this properly. And so in trying to make sure that everything's above board, it does to a certain degree delay the programs that we have in place. It delays the service delivery, and people hold on to what you said you do. And naively, when we got into power, we thought within a year, there's various things that we would have done. And people have held us to that. But equally, they've been fair enough to say, listen, you guys have done this, you promised to do this, and you've done that, but that is still outstanding. But when you explain to them as well why it's outstanding, why it has to go through the supply chain management process, why that process is so slow, I think people are better understanding. But that for me is one of the biggest challenges, that local government is literally like swimming through peanut butter.
Well, sounds like you're talking about something that frustrates politicians everywhere, and that's bureaucracy. I mean, it's the barriers that put in place, oftentimes well-intentioned, but really just gum up the works.
Yeah, no, they do. And yeah, as you say, like I'm not an advocate for less regulations because I understand why they're there. It's to protect the municipalities, to protect the citizens from corruption, from maladministration, and politicians just thieving, which is so common in Africa. But I think that sometimes even politicians with good intentions are slowed down by as you say, all the bureaucratic red tape.
No, it's absolutely a real problem. I mean, it's interesting here in America. There's this potential indictment of former President Donald Trump, and a lot of people talking about that subject. And people are pointing out the obvious in America. There's been several studies done about this. There are so many laws and regulations that are in place around America at the local, state, and federal level that, on average, Americans commit. Almost every American violates some law every day. And we have some silly laws like you can't spit on a sidewalk, in these towns, and that's not a silly law, but I mean, but it's not something you think of. But then, you can't wear a hat on this street or on that day. I mean, there's actually laws like that out there that conform to social and cultural norms at the time, 150 years ago, but they just stayed on the books. And technically, you could be arrested for violating the law. It builds up over time. I always find it interesting, Sandile, when people run for Congress here in America, they're always like, well, are they running for re-election? Well, I introduced 27 bills. And my answer to that is, so you tried to restrict my liberty and freedom 27 times. What exactly did you do for me? I mean, you're trying to make this country more difficult to live in. That's not a reason for me to vote for you. It's a reason to vote for someone else.
Yeah, sure.
Now, as a political scientist, how did you get into this? I mean, did you grow up thinking, I want to get into politics? Or, I mean, because one of the challenges in South Africa is that because of the culture that's been bred by the ruling party, this is a op-ed here for the audience. Okay, Sandile is not endorsing this. This is my statement. Because of the political culture that's been developed by the ruling party over the past 28 years, oftentimes people don't look at becoming a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut, a farmer, a physicist, a nurse, anything like that, a chemist, because the path to wealth and fame is to be a tenderpreneur or to be a counselor in a corrupt council where you can direct contracts and take money. So it's very frustrating for a lot of South Africans to see that a lot of younger South Africans aspire to that path, criminality, rather through politics, rather than a contributing society. But what made you think about politics, and why that? And was that something or did you want to grow up and be a forest ranger, or maybe you wanted to be a farmer? What did you want to do? Because I wanted to be a forest ranger, so I'm not a forest ranger.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I agree with you. And I think it's a wider African problem, and by African I mean the continent. Political connections and Tinder entrepreneurs, as you correctly pointed out, are the easiest way to access wealth. I think with me, I wanted to be a journalist. That's what I wanted to do. I thought investigative journalism was quite cool, but I couldn't get into journalism because I was hoping to go to Rhodes, and I never got into Rhodes. And so I ended up at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and I decided to do political science because I was interested in current affairs. And now, how I imagined things would turn out, I really honestly imagined myself becoming a doctor of politics and hopefully a professor and writing and teaching on various theories. But there's a time in South Africa, it's around about 2016, where there was a call to decolonize the South African university. There was fees must fall, which in essence meant that there was a call to sort of get rid of fees. Everyone could go to university and not have to pay any fees. And so there was SASCO, which is ANC aligned. There was the EFF Student Command, and then there was DASO. Basically, DASO is the Democratic Alliance Student Organization. And I felt what they were putting forward, was a lot more sensible than what the other two parties were putting forward. So the other two parties were basically saying that free education across the board. And what the DA was saying was that, no, let's have a staggered approach, because you can't have someone's son who's rich, despite the fact that they're black, but who's rich, also not paying anything towards their education. And I felt that method for me made more sense than the blanket, everyone must go to university for free. And so that's how really I got involved in politics. I wasn't really good at it at the time, and we were also outnumbered. So the University of KwaZulu-Natal is really a ANC Youth League, EFF Student Command stronghold. So there was like 4 or 5 of us who were swimming against the tide. And so it wasn't always pretty for us. We were, the laughing stock, and we were mocked a lot. But I think from back then, I really believe in the principles and what they were standing for, and I was quite happy to be mocked and laughed at for that.
Well, I have to tell you that one thing to keep in mind when you talk about swimming against the tide is that salmon swim against the tide literally, and they have the toughest journey of anyone. And if it were not for the persistence of salmon trying to get back upstream from the ocean inland to lay their eggs and propagate, the species would die off. So whenever you feel discouraged or you feel like you're swimming upstream, don't give up. I have to tell you that I very much feel like I'm swimming upstream these days with all the nonsense that's going on politically here in my country, around the world. Sandile, I spent 36 and a half years in uniform supporting and defending the Constitution. And I didn't do it for black folks or white folks or brown folks or Muslims or Jews or Christians. I did it for Americans. I did it for all Americans and in the countries where I was at supporting our friends, partners, and allies. And I'm kind of heart sore to see what's happening with politics here. And it looks like, at least in Howick, things have turned a corner. And under the current council that you guys are making progress. Do you face a lot of opposition within the council from other parties that are not part of what you're doing, or do they work with you? What's it like there? Because obviously I'm sure the ANC is not happy that they no longer rule the uMnngeni, but do they cooperate, or is it a challenge?
No, it's a massive challenge, and frivolous things as well. So I have found that, so we have committees, portfolio committees, and then we have council. So council is where all the councillors are together, and that's where really they like to, I'd call it grandstand, on a lot of things, and they block sensible things just for the sake of opposing, and I think that's that's problematic. So we entered partnerships with various NGOs who are doing great work within the municipality, that assist the municipality in some sense, that do work that the municipality should be doing. And when we wanted to enter into a memorandum of understanding with these NGOs, the ANC thought, let's block it. But the argument being put forward was really, there was no argument to it. What we were trying to end a network of patronage. We're trying to end a network of corruption, because, if you get your friends in power, or if you get your friends getting contracts, then there's money that flows to these various organizations and individuals. But as soon as you cut that off, then there's no money flowing. And so it was basically that. So some great ideas are being shut down just because they can be. Initially, the EFF, funny enough, was cooperating with us. But it looks like the EFF has changed its stance a lot, and they're now cooperating with the ANC. And I've said, and I think even in councils that are run by the IFP, the EFF have sort of dumped the IFP in favor of the ANC, which is quite interesting. And I don't know how that's going to fare for them in 2024, because if you ask me, I think the ANC is it's a dying organization, and people are quite hurtful with it. And so to jump in bed with them, I'm not entirely sure if that's the right move. But the EFF have certainly done that, and IFP run councils, and they've done that here. So now we have the ANC and the EFF against us. Whereas in the past, the EFF would support us on a lot of the issues that they felt were taking us forward as well.
Well, it is interesting, because if you look at the results of the 2021 municipal election, you see that a lot of people praise the IFP. They did so well. But I'm a more objective analyst. I have nothing against the IFP and nothing for. I'm trying to be objective here. But when you look at the statistics, they gained 2% more voters. So that's not a major increase. But the difference was that ANC voters, because of the internal insurrection in July of 2021 throughout KZN and other reasons, they just stayed home. ANC voters, by and large, stayed home. They shed voters like viral particles. They just didn't go to the polls to vote for the ANC. And so you see that the IFP, which had 8 municipal councils under their control, either outright through a majority coalition or a minority coalition in the last election, they went from 8 to 16. So they control 16 municipalities in KZN, unless there's been a collapse that I haven't heard about recently. And the DA controls uMnngeni now. So that's 17 municipalities in KZN. And this is the argument that I made, Sandile, is that opposition parties need to win councils outright, so that they don't have to be beholden to small fractional parties that can, demand this or demand that, or have to deal with people who are corrupt, because that often happens too. If you win a council outright, you can govern, and you can govern transparently, if that's your intent, honestly and fairly, and you don't have to be beholden. Now, that doesn't prohibit you from bringing another party into that ruling. You can form a coalition, a majority coalition, if you've got it. But now there are 17 towns or municipalities in KZN that are under the control of someone that's not the ANC. And this is the time that I said is the time for these parties to excel, to show voters what they can do. Now, I don't want to sound like a fanboy because I'm not a fanboy, but I mean, I'm going to say this. I think the voters are seeing what can be done when the ANC isn't running uMnngeni, and you've turned the corner. Do you agree with my assessment about the opportunity for those 17 municipalities? I don't think the IFP is going to succeed everywhere, but they have the opportunity, as does the Democratic Alliance in your town.
I 100% agree. And I mean, if you look at what's happened in Johannesburg, we had DA Mayor there, Dr. Paul Mpalatse, who's no longer there. Did she do anything wrong? I don't necessarily think so.
She did nothing wrong. She failed at nothing. She simply wasn't who they wanted.
Yeah, and that's why I definitely agree with you that political parties need to win outright so that we can actually show the difference between this is what a DA-run municipality looks like, and this is what an ANC-run municipality looks like, and then the voters can then make up their minds to decide which one they want for themselves. The same is now happening in Pretoria or Tshwane, where there was no outright majority, and now the DA has been booted out. And so, parties have to win outright in order to show what they can really do, because then you can pass whatever policy you want to pass. Then you can take the decision that you need to take without, talking to other parties and asking them to support. Your vision, as it is, can be implemented. And your assessment of that is quite correct.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is if you have that ability, then you can eliminate 10 to 12 million rand of debt that was dead debt, that was useless. You can come up with a savings of 400,000 plus rand per year, which can be put to better uses. You can get to work, and without having people constantly come up, my hand is up. Why is my hand up? Zoom is doing weird things here. I didn't put my hand up. Lower hand. Okay, I didn't put my hand up. That's weird. I don't know if you saw that on the screen, but it's like, I'm asking a question. Wait a second, Chris. Can you ask yourself a question? That is bizarre. This has been a weird stream. Anyway, so not because of the guest, but because of the technical aspects of it. Anyway, no, it's not the guest. It's not you, Sandile. But it's winning outright really makes a difference here, and how do you guys feel? I mean, I know it's a long way off, and fortunately, we should not rush to get through our lives. But I mean, 2021, so 2026 is the next municipal election. We're in 2023 here, but it's not been 2 full years. It's been a year and a half. How are you guys feeling? Do you feel that you are going to make the progress? You're going to make the connection with the voters that you can win this thing outright by more than 42 votes next time?
Yeah, I do. I mean, and I think. So, for example, the Auditor General did her yearly, audit on municipalities, and she said that we've improved. So, within the space of 7 or 8 months, we've improved. She said, "I've seen a significant improvement in uMnngeni municipality." So, we were sitting at qualified. We're now unqualified with findings, which is a step away from getting a clean audit. So that means we're moving in the right direction. COCTA, which is the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, came to the municipality to present their state of municipalities. And they've said that actually uMnngeni has moved from a very, a bad municipality, and they've moved into a more solid and functional municipalities. So by all indicators that are out there, we are certainly moving in the right direction. And we just have to keep on keeping on. We actually don't have, and I often think about it, it's a lot of pressure on the shoulders, because as you correctly pointed out, we're the only DA-run municipality in KwaZulu-Natal. So we're the only time that the people of KwaZulu-Natal can actually feel the DA difference. And so if we fell here, it could have a detrimental effect on the DA in the province. But I think that we are certainly going in the right direction. And as I've said earlier, there's various indicators that government use to test where municipalities are. And by those indicators, we're doing well. And I think the sentiment on the ground as well. So, when we bump into voters or residents, they don't swear at us and, throw rotten eggs at us and say, you're not doing anything for us. A lot of them are saying, thank you for the good work that you guys are doing, which means that we are able we are turning the ship around.
Well, I have to say that, I had never been to Howick, uMnngeni before my recent trips. I had driven by it dozens of times on my way to Durban or Pietermaritzburg, but I'd never been there before. And I have to say that it's an interesting little location. Geographically, the topology is quite lovely. The people I've met there have been really interesting. It's fascinating. Now, speaking of that, your mayor, I presume that you speak isiZulu. Yes, that's your first language.
Yes.
Okay,
That's my first language.
Yeah, well, based on the surname and based on the location, I was guessing that, but I
You never know these days.
But you wouldn't get that from someone named Chris Pappas. I mean, that's you wouldn't make that assumption. That's a Greek surname. But your mayor speaks isiZulu fluently, does he not?
No, he does, and I think that was definitely one of the factors that got us over the line. I mean, it also showed that people think that there are phenotypical white males in the DA. Yes, that is true, but there's always that perception, that a white male could never reach out to black voters, but that hasn't been the case. And I think the fact that Chris is able to speak isiZulu assists us a lot in that sense. And it's broken a lot of barriers. And let's face it, we live in South Africa. There's racial tension, but that has broken a lot of barriers. And the fact that not only does he speak isiZulu, I think he also understands the culture and tradition, and he does various things, and people can relate to those things. And I think to a certain extent, politics is about being relatable, and he certainly is. And that's why I say that it certainly got us took us over the line.
Well, I agree 100%. You've got to understand culture and norms of different groups, ethnicities. Otherwise, speaking language is one thing, but learning a language can certainly make that far easier to do. But for me, it's in South Africa, it's often been the opposite direction. I mean, I speak some Tswana because I live in Botswana, and I understand Afrikaans, maar ek praat nie Afrikaans nie. So, I can listen and follow and understand what's going on, but you're not going to be able to get me up and do a speech in Afrikaans. I just can't do enough of the... I just can't get that right. So, but my point is that I actually learned the culture and norms of the groups who speak those languages first and foremost, which is interesting. But I don't speak the languages proficiently enough, to make that impression that Chris can make with people, which is really cool when you can combine both those things, because it really shows that you have a genuine interest, you genuinely care, and you, I would say, have a vested interest in the welfare of the people you're trying to represent when you make that effort.
Yeah, I think so too. And you will go into uMnngeni, which is our biggest township, and I don't know why, but meat is a big thing with Zulu people. And you'll go there, go to the Shisanyama, sit down, eat meat, have a cool drink with the guys, and just chat to them about things that they are interested about. I think the time for aloof politicians that are inaccessible is gone, and I think people enjoy that we not only are relatable but we're also accessible. We had a TV crew that came in, and one of the things that they picked up as well was that you guys are really accessible. You're fresh of breath in. I think that's what he's been as well to this area, and I think to the party as well. And I think the party does see him as an asset for those reasons.
Well, again, and obviously you've realized this. That's part of leadership. That really is. I mean, for me, it was always important to me to get away from my desk as I got higher in rank and more responsibility, and get out amongst the people that work for me and the people that I have to interact with. And, and I always did that. I always made time for that. If I had to do it on I was in Liberia rebuilding the military. If I had to go out on a Saturday night to the barracks and just meet soldiers and talk to them, I did it. I made it a priority. And some people are like, yeah, but it eats up and out of your time. Yeah, but I signed up for this. Guys, you signed up for it. You're there ostensibly to make a difference. And I'll tell you this, Sandile, the impact that you can have is probably far greater now in what you're doing than if you were lecturing at, say, UCT or something like that. What do you think? What do you think of that?
I agree. And I mean, we were discussing with Chris the other day, and he said besides the fixing of potholes and getting the municipality working, there's a lot of influence, to get people thinking in a certain way, and just drive. I'll often argue, and I could be wrong, I could be right. I'll chat to my mates. I said, what is our generational mission as the youth of South Africa now? So we had the Mandela generation, they had a mission. I find that we still haven't sort of found what it is that young people in South Africa want to achieve. And that's why young people don't want, for some odd reason, they don't want to be politically active or aware. They just, they think politics is taboo and it's for certain people. And so that's been my thing, to get young people. There's a lot of voter apathy amongst young people as well. They're just not interested in politics because they're just so despondent. And I think that we have a chance to, get people thinking about politics again and participating, especially the younger generation, which are nowhere to be found, to be found in all fairness.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a universal and a time frustrating thing for everyone. Youth never get involved in politics. They moan about it. They complain about it. They might show up for demonstrations. They might demand free education at WITS or at UCT. But the reality is that rarely do they go and vote, regardless of what the situation is. We've seen a few occasions, like the 2008 presidential election in America, where we saw a slight uptick in people 18 to 24 who went to vote. I have voted in every single election since I turned 18 years of age. In fact, my first election, I was denied the right to vote, and I was angry. So I had been working in the cafeteria at university. I was 17 when I started university. I turned 18. And so I couldn't vote in the November election because my birthday's Christmas. I had to wait till the primaries, which are, selecting the party candidates. And at the time, I was a registered Republican. So that was in May of 1983. Anyway, so that was that's when that was, and when I just turned 18. So I was working cafeteria, and I was supposed to be off at 7. The polls closed at 7:30. My polling station was on the opposite side of campus, about 3 kilometers away. So I had my bicycle, and they wouldn't let me go. Like, oh, you got to finish busting these tables. You got to clean this up. I'm like, I got to go vote. They're going to close. They finally let me go. I jumped on my bicycle. I pedaled across campus. Fortunately, it's down by the golf course, so not much traffic. I got over there. I locked up my bicycle. I ran inside. I found my precinct, and the table was empty. It was 7:23 or 7:21. There was no one there, 7:21. And I looked around. All the other tables had people for voters. And I said, did he go to the bathroom? And they said, no, he closed. He left. I'm like, but it's not 7:30. What am I supposed to do? He said, well, you'll have to go to the courthouse. I'm like, what? So I got on my bicycle, and you've probably never heard of Athens, Ohio, but if you've ever been there, there's this massive hill that you have to go up to get what they call uptown, because it's up a hill. So I had to go uptown, and I'm pedaling up there. Of course, I'm 18. I'm super fit. My ribs are exposed. I'm so skinny, just off the farm. And I get up there, and I run into the courthouse. I didn't even lock up my bike. I dropped it outside the door. I threw open the door. I said, I've been disenfranchised. And the county commissioner, the chairman of the board of elections, and someone else were like, calm down, young man, calm down. And they said, what's wrong? I said, it's not even 7:30. I just came from the convocation center. There was no one there. I couldn't vote. This isn't right. This is an injustice. I'm embellishing now. I don't know what I said by that point. But anyway, the point is that I'm like, okay. So they took me in another room. And that's when I found out what a provisional ballot was, because I had to file a provisional ballot because there was a circumstance which prevented me from voting, which wasn't anyway. So and that's how seriously I take voting. I voted in every single election. And I spent 23 of my 36 years in the Army overseas. Obviously, I couldn't go to the polling station. Every year I had to apply for my mail-in ballot, my federal absentee ballot. That's how seriously I take elections. But since the age of 17, I took it very seriously. It's frustrating to get youth interested in politics and to do something. And unfortunately, oftentimes it's the wackadoodles who want to get interested. They're the ones who are young who get involved. And they're probably not that's probably not who you want involved in politics.
That's true. That is very true. That is very true. Yeah.
Well, we're talking. Go ahead.
Sorry?
Go ahead. You were saying, and what?
No, I said, and us nerds. I always say to people, there's an inner nerd inside me. So everyone sees me and they see this big burly former rugby player, and they're like, "Oh, well, we didn't think you'd be the type," Because
okay, hold on. You're a former rugby player.
Yeah, I played rugby. I was funny enough, I was on the wing. So that was my position.
I was on the left. I was on the left wing, but I'm not a left wing politician. But I was on the left wing. So, all right. Well, I didn't even know this is an avenue we'll have to approach in a subsequent interview. But let's touch on it briefly here before I lose you here, because you've given us the hour that you promised us very quickly.
Yeah.
So I presume that you're a Sharks fan.
I have to be a Sharks fan. I mean, I grew up in KwaZulu-Natal, so I'm a Sharks fan.
Yeah, no, the Sharks. I got it. Obviously, I would presume a Springbok fan too, of course.
Oh no, yeah, no, definitely. That's a non-negotiable. The current world champions looking forward to retaining the title later on this year. So.
Yeah, but we took a massive hit this weekend. I don't know if you saw, but Cheslin Colby was injured scoring a try and left the field in tears. I don't know what the status is, but it looked like his ankle was messed up. I'm hoping that that he's okay, but he's got 6 months before we get there. But you don't want 6 months off. You want to stay fit. So I'm very concerned about Cheslin Colby because he's the X factor for the Bucs. He really is. I think that Makazole and Pimpy used to be the X factor, but I think he's getting a little long in the tooth.
No, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And I don't know if you heard or no, it was Spoonkosi. I think it was Spoonkosi. He disappeared.
Well, he got disciplinary. He was gone for a long time, but he's back now, and he's made a huge impact with the Bulls already, even though they can't seem to buy a win.
Yeah, I don't know if you follow Varsity Cup at all, but it looks like Tux University is going to be relegated. So
I think that's a given. They've won exactly 0 games. Yes, I do follow Varsity. I actually have a super brute pool in Tux, and I went to 2 Varsity Cup games when I was in South Africa. I went to
awesome.
I went to Tux where they had the Shimlas there, and then the next game I went to was Wits hosting UJ. Now you're not going to believe this. So I went to the game. Of course, it's in Joburg. You got to be prudent about your safety, and getting out of town and stuff. So that game, if it had been close, I wouldn't have left. But it was 30-0 UJ at the end of half. And I'm like, oh, my God, let's just go, because I was there with a friend. And so we took off. We drove. And they came back and won 35-33. Can you believe that?
That's the worst. Yo, but what is the likelihood of that comeback? I mean, that's not...
that's impossible. 18 million to 1, right? I mean, 35 points to 3 points in the second half. That's just insane. But you're right. Tux is going to be... It doesn't look good for Tux.
Yeah, I know. And they've won it twice in a row, haven't they? So this year they're going to be up.
Yeah, that's just crazy. And they weren't that bad in the game against the Shimlas. But I don't think they expected to lose that game, and they seem to have collapsed since then.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yep.
Do you before we get off the rugby, do you watch the URC at all, or are you just too busy with your deputy mayor and your ward responsibilities?
Well, I tried to. I mean, I was supposed to watch the Sharks on Saturday. I beg your pardon, on Sunday, but then I don't know what happened. So I haven't really been able to watch that. So I don't know. I miss it a lot.
Well, what I can recommend to you, there's this incredible rugby channel called Rugby Ascendant. I know the guy personally that does the commentating on there. It's me. But what I do is on YouTube for Curry Cup at URC, test matches for the Springboks, and if I can get the Velviches and others, because I like them as well, and the Eagles, I do live color commentary and play-by-play. So it's like listening to the radio. You see me on camera, and I do it, and I think a lot of people enjoy my enthusiasm. Plus, I think some South Africans kind of like the American accent when it's rugby, whereas most of us prefer to listen to the South African or the Irish accent for the rugby. But anyway, so there you go. Listen, Sandile, Mnikathi, it's been a real pleasure to have you on. Before I let you go, because you've got work to do and things to do, it is a work day. I know it's the end of the day, but I'm sure it doesn't end when you leave the office. But before I let you go,
we actually got a caucus meeting. We actually got a caucus meeting just now, so you're not wrong.
See, so there you go.
Tomorrow, so
Well, before I let you go, then, anything you'd like to wrap up with? And first off, you're welcome back on the channel. I'd love to have you back again. We'll try to schedule it if you're up for it. And hopefully we won't have these technical snafus. My apologies for that. But any final thoughts or comments from you, maybe about uMnngeni or about, life in South Africa, or maybe hope for South Africans, or is the end nigh? I mean, is the apocalypse coming? Just something to share with folks, because a lot of people will listen to what you had to say.
No, I don't think that the end is nigh. I think that we've got a choice next year, and I think next year's election is going to be critical. Some people have likened it to the 1994 election, and I think that what I'd say is I'd encourage a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are despondent. I think a lot of people are afraid. But to go to the ballot box, there's a lot of voter apathy, especially amongst young people. Go out there, put your eggs next to the party that you think is going to do the right job. I think that a lot of people were scared of the Democratic Alliance, especially amongst Black people. And I think they have seen that we're not as racist. And I say we in inverted commas because, the DA has been viewed as a racist party for so many years. And I think they've seen that we're not a racist party and that we genuinely care about South Africa and South Africans. Obviously, I'd like to punt for my party, but I think that we desperately need change as a country. So anyone with a like-minded view to the DA, I'm happy if people vote for them as well. But I cannot see it. I'm not slating any other political party, but with the trajectory that we're on now, I just cannot think. I don't think that things will become better for us if we keep the status quo.
Well, I think it's a fair statement, and 2024 should be an earth-shattering event for South Africans. In fact, I plan to time one of my trips to South Africa to be in the final days once that election's announced, to be there and cover it on the ground. And who knows, maybe I'll be in KZN, maybe down to uMnngeni again, just to see what the voter sentiment is. And my intent is to get everywhere, hostels, into the townships, into the leafy suburbs, to talk to people and also talk to politicians, see how it goes. But it's been a real pleasure having you on. Thank you for bearing with the technical staff snafus and my
No
tardiness
worries.
on getting it set up. We'll get you back again if you're up for it. And by the way, congratulations. I did see in notes that were sent to me that you were named Inside Education 100 Shining Star for 2022. I'm not familiar with that honor, but it sounds like an impressive one.
Yeah, and so I don't know, but I'll be in America in June, so that'll be quite cool. Experience the American, lifestyle. I've always heard about it, so looking forward to that. Part of the Mandela Washington Fellowship, so that's a flagship thing.
Yes.
Yes, it'll be quite cool.
Very familiar with the program. We used to call it YALI, Youth.
Yes.
Used to be called YALI.
Yeah,
Of course, I worked in 8 embassies in Africa, and that was a program that we pushed really hard. And I've actually sponsored people to participate in that when I was in Botswana and Uganda. So that's pretty cool. I'm not too far from D.C., so if I'm not traveling to Texas at that time to cover rugby, maybe we can link up down there or something like that. Just let me know. And who knows, maybe we'd have a coffee and do a live stream from a Starbucks or something like that. I don't want you to get the wrong impression about American culture. DC is not American culture, and New York is not American culture. They're little parts of American culture. The Amish are American culture. The old Spanish families of New Mexico are American culture. Native Americans out in Arizona and upstate New York, that's American culture is very diverse, and people have this sanitized version of it from television, which is true, but it's not entirely accurate. So I just want to caution you before you get here, since it'll be your first trip. But thank you very much. I don't speak Zulu, so I've forgotten how to say thank you in Zulu, but I can say it in Afrikaans, and I can say it in the Setswana. So baie dankie and kia leboa.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, folks. Sandile now I can't get your surname. I had it right the whole time. Mnikathi, the deputy mayor of uMnngeni municipality in KZN. I'll let you drop off and go to your meeting, and I'll go and wrap up for my audience. Thank you so much. Take care. All right, folks. I hope you found that interesting and enjoyable. I know I did. My apologies for the no announcement. It was supposed to be on the board. I don't know why it wasn't scheduled. That falls on me. I thought I'd schedule it, but my apologies. Hopefully a lot of people see this after the fact. For those of you who caught up here in the conversation, you'll found out the news that my original channel from 2006 has been restored on YouTube. I appealed it for a third time. When I appealed it, when it was removed in April of 2021, I was told to get stuffed, footsec, that despite the fact that the video wasn't on my channel, they're taking it down anyway. Well, I waited 6 months, appealed again. They said, oh, it's been too long. And I said, that's nonsense. All this stuff sits on your server. And in fact, it does. The channel's back with 21,000 subscribers. We lost over 2,000 in the 2 years. But thank you to all the folks who stuck with that channel. And as I've told people about the shadow banning, about the capricious nature of how they just remove people on social media, the fact and the reality is this: many of the big people who subscribed to me on the old channel didn't know where to find me, didn't go looking for me, and thought I just disappeared. I've already seen several comments posted on the new channel just this morning from people like, oh my goodness, I was just thinking about your channel this morning. We need a sane voice. I wondered where you went. You see how well when they hide your new channel, which is this channel. So going forward, I'm going to continue to do the news here for now, and I'm going to start doing Night Owls on the other channel. I've had to go through and remove some videos just in case they change their community standards and they might say they violated. So there you go. So the old channel with 21,000 viewers is back up. Channel memberships were canceled when the channel was canceled, but the monetization wasn't canceled. So they canceled that. So I will have to go back and rebuild the paying memberships for people who want to be paying members. So my apology to everyone who lost their icon. I have no control over it. That was capricious and unfair of YouTube, but the channel is back. And that's good news. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll see what happens on there. Here's the really good news. I have gotten my interview with Steve Hofmeyer from August of 2020 back. I'm going to upload it on this channel, and I'm looking forward to it. That's awesome. Thank you all so much for being here, and my thanks to my guest, Sandile Mnikathi, who is the deputy mayor of the uMnngeni municipality where Howick is located in KwaZulu-Natal. It was a real pleasure to talk to him. Fascinating fellow, and I hope you enjoyed as well. Be sure to hit the like button. You are also welcome to leave a comment behind if you like, folks. Drunken Yoda says, beat me to it. The old channel coming back. Yep. All right, cool beans. All right, thank you all, folks. And by the way, I've been deleting other videos and making them private, like the Republican National Convention, which doesn't violate any rules, but I'm not taking any chances on that channel. So thank you all so much. And hey, cool beans. I'll see you back here in about 45 minutes. I got to set up the news. I'll do the news today, and we'll talk about the return to my old channel. And then tonight, there will be a Night Owls on the original channel at 11 p.m. South Africa time, 11 p.m. All right. So there you go, folks. 11 p.m. South Africa time. So thank you for that. And hopefully we'll see some of you on that Night Owls. It won't always be at that hour. It'll be earlier. But today, because I've got other commitments already, I will be on my old channel at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. South Africa time, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thanks, everybody. Cheers. Appreciate it.